What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Luke, and I'm excited today to bring you a guitar lesson video based on the use of intervals and creating small chords that you can move up and down the neck quickly. I first want to say, though, as I'm shooting this video at the end of March 2020, that if you're someone that has been impacted in any way by the coronavirus, that my thoughts and prayers go out to you. I hope you're being safe, and I know many of us around the nation, in the U.S. and around the world are trying to be safe and make smart choices in how we interact right now. So I hope you're doing well. Well, I'm excited in this video. If you saw my last video based on broken chords and creating simple tools on the guitar where you can move shapes up and down the neck very quickly, this lesson is going to be very similar in that we're going to focus on two different intervals and being able to use them quickly up and down the neck. So whether you're a songwriter, whether you're someone who plays in a band, or even just playing at home on your acoustic, I hope that this lesson is fun for you and something that you can apply right away. All right, so let's start out with the definition of an interval. An interval, at least how I'm going to define it for the sake of this video, is the musical distance between two notes. And so if I'm thinking, for example, of a G chord, we're all familiar as guitar players with the G chord. And by the way, my acoustic, which I'm playing today, I keep it tuned a half step down. So my E, for example, instead of being an E, is actually an E flat. Or if your tuner only reads sharps, then it would be like a D sharp. And that's carried all the way across the strings. I have all of my strings tuned a half step down. So definitely sorry if that throws you off, but I was enjoying playing these shapes and rhythms on my acoustics. So anyways, I hope you still enjoy it. So for intervals, there's three intervals I want to talk with you about today. And I'm going to go through them really quickly, but feel free to rewind and watch it over again if you need to. And then I'm going to give you some examples. And I'm probably going to call this a part one because I'm going to focus on starting these intervals on the top three strings or your bass strings, the E, the A, and the D. So these top three strings here are your bass strings. I'm going to base these intervals or build these intervals around those strings. But if you would like a video where we do these intervals all across the fretboard, all the way down to the bottom, I would be more than glad to look at making one of those. So feel free to comment. Let me know if you would like a video that has that covering that all the way across. All right, so starting on a G note, I'm going to talk about three different intervals. The first interval would be an octave. So that's going to be, if I have a G note, I want to play that same note, but an octave up. And the way I'm going to do that is skip over the A string. And then on the D string, I'm going to skip up 2 frets from the 3rd fret. So here's the 3rd fret. I'm going to hop over the A string. And on the D string, I'm going to skip 2 frets. And on the 5th fret, that's going to give me an octave. So that's the same note, but just an octave apart. So that's an octave. The next interval I want to talk about is a third. And for thirds, we have a major third and then we have a minor third. So let me start with the major third and then I'll show you how to make a minor third. So if I have the same note again, a G, and actually let me go an octave up to this G because that'll sound a little nicer with the third put with it. So here's a G note. To make a third interval, a major third interval, I'm going to go over 1 string and then I'm going to go back 1 fret. So I'm starting on the 5th fret. I have my middle finger on the 3rd string, the D string, on the 5th fret. I'm going to go over 1 string to the G, and I'm going to move back 1 fret. And that's going to make a major third. Now the difference between a major and a minor third is just taking that third and moving it down a half step or moving it back 1 more fret. So you could do that by just pulling your finger back like that, but that's a little bit uncomfortable. What I might do is change my my fingering style and play more with my middle finger and my index finger. So that moves it to a minor. So major and minor. So that's a third interval. And the last one I wanted to show you was a 5th interval. So a G chord, we've been going through these already, but a G chord is built off the note G, B, and D. And so the G to the B is the root to the 3rd, and then the G to the D is the root to the 5th. So I want to show you that 5th interval. So if I have, going back to our top E string here, if I'm fretting on the 3rd, and then I want to make the 5th interval, I'm going to go down 1 string to the A, and then I'm going to skip, I'm going to go plus 2 frets, to the 5th fret. And I'm going to play, that's a D note right there, a G and a D. Now the cool thing about using a 5th is that a 5th doesn't have a quality. It's not major or minor, it's just a 5th. And so whereas opposed to the 3rd, when I have, it has a voicing to it in terms of major or minor, the 5th always stays the same. So that interval never changes. Now on more complex chords like a diminished chord or something like that, you will see like a flat 5 or something like that. But generally speaking, when we're talking about just kind of standard chords or contemporary music, the 5th is always just a normal 5th. All right, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to just really quickly, I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to take this concept and I'm going to show you how to build it across, at least for the 3rd and the 5th interval, across all 3 of these top bass strings, the E string, the A string, and the D string. When we get to the D string, I'm not going to do the octave just yet because that B string on the bottom, your 2nd string from the bottom, because that's tuned a 3rd apart, that kind of changes things and you have to add a fret to your formula, so to speak. So for this part 1, I'm just going to focus on these top bass strings and focus on what's common, because whenever we do the 3rd interval and the 5th interval, they stay the same across all of those bass strings. All right, so we're really going to lean in on these last few examples on just the 3rd interval and the 5th interval, and we're going to start moving them across the top 3 strings. So if I go to the C, for example, so we have a G note here. If I move down to the A string but still on the 3rd fret, that's a C. And the formula stays the same. So if I'm going to make a 5th interval, or actually let's do the 3rd first. If I'm going to do the 3rd interval, I'm going to go up 1 string, so I'm going to go up to the D string, but I'm going to go back 1 fret. So I have the 3rd here, which I'm going to fret with my middle finger. Then I'm going to go up a string to the D string, but I'm going to go back 1 fret. And that makes a major 3rd. Of course, if I want to make it a minor, I take that 3rd down a half step. It makes a minor chord. If I move that up to the, if I want to make a D chord out of that, I'm just going to take this shape, this exact shape, move it up 2 frets, and have a D major. And of course, knowing what my minor chord is, I can slide that up again 2 frets, and then drop that 3rd down and make an E minor. Now the great thing again about focusing just on these top 3 strings, the E, A, and D, is that when I move that down to the D, and I'm only using these immediate 3rd and 5th voicings, the shapes still stay the same. So I'm going to take an octave here. I'm going to go to the octave up G, which is on the 5th fret on the D string. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a major, make a minor. But I could walk that up to, for instance, an A minor, a B minor, A minor, G, G, A, B. And then I'm just following what I know of this key. Let me just state that for you right now, and I'll put a graphic here at the bottom. But in the key of G, if we're talking about just kind of the standard chords, your 1 chord is a G, your 2 chord is an A minor, your 3 chord is a B minor, your 4 and 5 are majors, so a 4 is a C, a 5 is a D, a 6 is an E minor. And then in regards to like contemporary music, we don't frequently use the 7, so I won't cover that right now. But I can move these again all the way up, and then the shapes stay the same. Whenever I'm focusing just on the top 3 strings, I don't have to change the formula for any of it. So that's the great thing about any of these shapes, is that when I'm focusing on just the top 3 bass notes, again the E, A, and D string, if I'm creating my bass notes on any of those 3 strings, any of these 3, the formula stays the same. If I'm playing a 5th, it stays the same from one to the next. If I'm playing a 3rd, it stays the same from one to the next. And then, of course, an octave, as I go further down, as I go to the D string, because of that B string, it does change a little bit, so I'm going to save that for like a part 2. The last thing I wanted to throw in as a bonus for you is, especially talking about the key of G, we have this open G string that's really convenient. That's our 3rd string from the bottom. It's really convenient to be able to incorporate that within these little 2-note shapes. So if I were going to do this progression, which is like a C major to an E minor to a D major, it would sound like this, and this is going to be with just the two notes. Because that G is so close to those notes, that being that third from the bottom, or that third string from the bottom, I can actually let that ring open. Because we're in the key of G, that can just ring across all those changes and it would sound something like this. I'll play more of like a finger style. So I love that. Anytime I can incorporate an open string that has a strong relationship with the key that I'm in, I'm looking to do that anytime, especially on acoustic guitar, but really acoustic or electric, because it creates a very beautiful kind of ambient droning sound. So the biggest reason that I wanted to make this video was just to give you a tool that you could use right away to create some different dynamics within your songs. Again, if you're a songwriter, if you're playing with another guitarist, or just playing at home and wanting to mix things up in your playing, I thought this was a great way to do that. So I'm going to take the concepts that we've learned, and just as kind of an outro, I'm just going to take a chord progression and play it, but I'm going to add some dynamics using these different voices. And I'll switch a little bit from doing maybe like a fifth, maybe an octave, doing a third, and maybe even do some finger style, adding that open G string. But I hope you enjoy it, and check it out. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that lesson video. If you did, please hit subscribe down below. That would really help me out. And I would also love in the comments to hear feedback on anything that you're working on, maybe even a lesson video that you would like to see based on a technique or a playing style. I'd love to hear that, so please share that with me. As I said before, I hope you guys are doing good in this time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.